To be an MFMA approved mill, I mean, it requires an extreme amount of attention to detail, and we use the same level of detail in what we do. We have to, because at the end of the day, like I say, it's all about branding. You can't be a shade off on the wrong color of blue. You gotta be in it to win it. So you have to detail has to be your life.
Hey, welcome to All Things Wood Floor, brought to you by Wood Floor Business. A special sponsor today of this episode, GameTime Wraps, Little Rock, Arkansas, the world's only sealed and finished permanent vinyl floor system. From gym lines to center court artwork to whatever you could possibly imagine, they can put it on a floor. Commercial, residential, visit their website at GameTimeWraps.com for more info. Today on All Things Wood Floor, Mike Hoy and Chris Pester from GameTime Wraps. They're going to talk new technologies in the artistry of wood floor design and in chemistry. Warm up your web browser and check out the amazing sports floor work by GameTime at Paul Quinn College and Baylor University. While you're at it, throw up Wood Floor Business Magazine and enter GameTime in the search box to follow along. Floor pros around the world are going to be drooling over what the future of sports floors are going to look like, and who knows whatever else, because they're cracking things wide open. On deck, Mike Hoy and Chris Pester. Welcome to All Things Wood Floor. Welcome, Mike Hoy and Chris Pester, to All Things Wood Floor from GameTime Wraps. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
This is really exciting. Hey, listen, we cover everything from flooring contracting to you name it. You guys, and Mike, you've been on All Things Wood Floor before, but GameTime Wraps I started working with a few years ago because I would, do the local YMCA's. The floor guys would get them, and no one would really know how to do the artwork. Then they got really fussy about their logo. Not so much the lines as the logo had to be right. And in the last 6 months to a year, it's leapt from paint in the bucket to what you guys do. So let's jump right into that. Mike, let's start with you. Where are you from and what are you up to?
Well, as most of you know, I've been around this industry longer than most cockroaches. 40 years this year.
Nice.
My second go round with a coatings company, spent many years, with the Poloplast brand, which is where Chris and I started working together the first time. GameTime Wraps, to sum it up, we are a collaborative of like-minded people. We just want to do things the right way and treat people the right way. Something we've always kind of prided ourselves on. Just north of 200 years of experience now in the coatings business. We were just counting this morning. So we're excited. We love the fact that, from Bob's beginnings, which was, the GameTime Wraps, which was the vinyl logos, for gym floors. And then it evolved into paint mask, just trying to make all things easy. And now over time, here we are 8 years later, literally this month, Bob started in December of 16. 8 years later, we are a full lines coatings manufacturer, both residential and the sport flooring market. We are innovators. I mean, we have not, our greatest asset is that we were not handcuffed to legacy formulas because we've been making coatings for 30 years.
Absolutely. And how'd you drag Chris into this? Because Chris, you've been around the block a few times too. I've seen you up at my place. We run into each other. I think you're located in my geography at this point in time.
Yes, sir. I'm based in New Hampshire. I'm just over 20 years in this industry. I'm about 3 months here at Game Time.
That accent sounds like New Hampshire if you take the new out. Are you from Old Hampshire?
Boston, yeah, Boston accent, right?
Sure, there you go.
No, Chris and I have known each other for north of 20 years. We were right at about 20 years. We were talking about it at dinner last night. I first made Chris's acquaintance back when I was with Floor Style Products, going back to the Stone Age of this.
Oh, people love Floor Style.
Yeah, I was a sales director there, ran the Michigan office, helped them open up several other offices. And that's how Chris and I got to know each other. When he was still a contractor, I was selling him, sandpaper finish, scraper blades, all that stuff through Floor Style. And we've been pretty much been fast friends ever since, just simply because we're kind of cut the same way. Other than
Floor Style had a
other than I don't use the Queen's proper English.
He does.
He does. He's really good.
He does. He's got it all. Get all wrapped up. Chris, originally London, sensing or somewhere?
Yeah, Southwest London. Yeah, okay. About 20 years there. Traveled Europe for about 10 years, and about 20 years in America.
And Mike, is it Ohio, Michigan? I get them confused because it might be both for you, right? Ohio,
I am the pasty Midwesterner. I was born and raised in Central Ohio. Okay. Please don't hold that against me. No, and it's still home. My mother, my mother, brother, sister, still there. Strange coincidence. Bob, our owner, is from Central Ohio also, and we never knew each other until we met in our Poloplast days.
Bob Sarr? Is it Bob Sarr?
Yeah. Okay. Correct. Yep. Bob and I've known, we've known each other now for north of 10 years, but literally grew up 15 minutes from each other and never knew it.
Well, before all this, how did you actually get into the flooring side of it? Everybody's got that story. Someone, family member dragged you in, or you hit hard
Best
times.
Best friend's dad in my junior year of high school. It was like, I wanted a summer job. And so I ran around and, learned to scrape corners and broom sweep wood floors. It was that many years ago. Then we got vacuums, and it's all I've ever done. So
it's crazy. And Chris, how did you originally get into actual hardwood flooring?
So when I came to America, I was a chef in my past life, and I did not want to cook here. So I started looking for work, and the first guy that contacted me back was Dennis Frawley of Accurate Floor Service in New York. And I worked with Dennis for about 5 years before moving up to Massachusetts, where I started my own company.
And you were install, sand, and finish, the whole deal, like the traditional Boston hardwood floor contractor? Sure.
Yep, yep. And, went to the NWFA schools and learned as much as I could from as many people as I could, including Mike. Mike was instrumental in teaching me a lot of things as a rep. He was just a brilliant rep, somebody that would check in on you. Occasionally you get the phone call, how's everything going? Got any questions? Always there to answer questions. Somebody that I try to model myself on now as a rep. I've been there, seen it, done it, and I know how it feels when I was using a competitor's products years ago and I had a problem on a huge job. It took them 2 weeks to get back to me. Awful, right? Awful. Right. I've never used that company again to this day.
It's something.
I learned a lot from Mike and still do.
Well, last I spoke with Mike, you do the whole coatings thing. You're all over in coatings, manufacturing. We had a really good talk about the technical aspects of finishes, et cetera, and everything. So somebody this week had mentioned to me GameTime, and first time it ever occurred to me, I said GameTime wraps. And I started thinking, oh, wow, this. So I was in graphic arts for years, and you go to a place and say, I want to put my name on the door. They make you a sign and you bolt it to your building. Then years later, they bought you vinyl and you stuck it to the glass. And I know about a year or two ago, I noticed people are doing an entire automobile. And I go, what is that? They go, oh, they call it a wrap. It wasn't until a couple of days ago I was explaining GameTime wraps. And I go, oh, wraps. Oh, I get it. So you put this incredible logo on a gymnasium floor or whatever it is. Did it start with automobiles and windows and doors and marketing and that kind of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. We still do. We have, here at our facility in Little Rock, we have 2 bays still that we will, trucks, vans, cars, whatever. We've got techs that will, put anything you can send us a picture of, we'll put it on there. We'll put it on there. We do the same thing with, floors, walls, doors. We have just need to know what you need, from that perspective. Our gym customers love it in the fact that they can make an order from us, and it could be paint mask or a printed vinyl logo. They get their seal, their finish, their paint. If they're one of those companies that do all the locker rooms and all that stuff, we can provide vinyl graphics for any type of wall surface, whether it's drywall, masonry, it doesn't matter. We have the perforated vinyl to do the glass doors as you enter the building. We're just kind of your one-stop shop. We enjoy doing it. We love it. Have actually started playing around using clear vinyl base to do like a multi-species inlay and print that. We haven't gone. We're not going to market with that yet, but it's something I think we could do it.
Yeah. You guys are definitely innovative. Throw me your website because people are going to tune in and listen to the podcast, and they really need to go see what I saw. What's the website for GameTime?
It's just www.gametimewraps.com.
On there, I saw gymnasiums, walls of buildings, vehicles. Yep. I saw you had some photos from Baylor University that were.
And we actually amazing. that is probably one of our most interesting projects. In every aspect of that floor is vinyl. There's, both we did the practice facility first. Now we've done the competition arena with one of our best customers. And even the game lines where the arcs are, you got 3-point arcs and circles and all that stuff are vinyl on that floor because over the years they've had such bad experiences with paint chip out, and you get seasonal movement in floors. It's it's unavoidable. There's always going to be a little bit of seasonal movement. You can't stop it. So you hit an edge the wrong way and you chip the paint.
What do you do with something that large? Like, I'm not kidding. You put a logo down, fine. You put the coach's box down, fine. You're talking about some of these sheets cover almost the entire gym. How do you get the lines spot on without them stretching or moving in any way?
Well, the vinyl has memory. And even once it's installed, it has memory. So, when the techs are putting it down, in some cases you're using heat, in some cases you're not, to actually, bend the vinyl and make those radiuses. You have to have it preheated, and a special, it's similar to a game line tape machine that people have seen forever, but it applies the 2-inch, colored vinyl lines. So you can do the whole thing. It's just evolution, I guess, is the way to put it. And the nice thing about the vinyl is it can go through some seasonal expansion and contraction
without white line or anything.
Allows it to recover.
Oh, that's cool.
It stretches when the floor expands, and when the floor shrinks back, it goes back with.
It'd be one massive credit card to take the bubbles out of that. When you do your window, they could just take the credit card.
And that's no lie.
Right?
If you go on our YouTube page, you will see a project we did, Paul Quinn College, and that is a basketball arena floor that is actually 100% from corner to corner vinyl.
That's on my checklist. Listeners got to look at the Paul Quinn College. It's Quinnite Nation. It's sick. I can't even describe it. It's an entire city backdrop onto a gym floor. It's amazing looking. So cars, trucks. So let's go right to the technical part of it, because this is where you and I talked about this a few years ago. Everybody knows, and in our industry, a lot of things begin with everybody knows. Everybody knows pre-finished is junk. Everybody knows water-based is terrible. Well, everybody knows you can't coat vinyl in a gymnasium because it'll peel, which was true up until about the time I last spoke with you. What has changed? Because that's the key.
Yeah, a little over 2 years ago, Bob and our senior chemist here created a coating. We actually have two now that will bond directly to our printed vinyl.
Right.
So yeah, it's actually a patented system. It's the only one. It is, and it doesn't peel. It does, if it's handled properly. We've designed coatings specifically to work over these. So we have one called Bridge that you can actually coat the vinyl in, and you can even put oil base on top of it.
That's okay. That's going to lead to another question. Back up a little bit for a second. You mentioned Bob a lot. Bob, sorry, he had a partner, right? Was it Wes?
Wes, yes.
Wes Kirtley?
Wes Kirtley.
If I remember, I think it was about 2015, 2016, they put all that together. Does that sound right?
December of 16. Yeah, we're actually 8 years old this month.
Wow. That's crazy. The sports floor world is a whole proprietary thing. I know here, and Chris can tell you, if you're in Boston and you finally get some type of a sport floor, by the time you leave, go back home, calculate everything, somebody's already popped up like a fruit fly from some attic somewhere and taken the job away from you, right? The Hilliard guys.
It
So
is.
when you've never seen a fruit fly in your house until you open a bottle of wine, and there they are. I'd go look at a job. Next thing you know, I'd get a call. Oh, the Hilliard guy was. I don't even know what Hilliard is. Well, apparently they owned every gym in the world, and they had something somewhere in every school, everywhere they would pop up. I would never get those jobs until I started getting YMCA's because they would use local contractors. And then it got into the game time portion of it. You guys were involved in the sports floor at game time. Didn't you, in 2018, work with Robbins in their sports floor division?
Yes. Yeah. That Bob and Wes partnered up indirectly with Mr. Stair. And they did they've done several projects with Robbins over the years. But at the same time, we're not tied to them. There's no partnership. There's no paperwork. So per se, Mr. Stair helped Bob out in the beginning just because that's the kind of man he was. He was a good person, believed in Bob and what his vision was, and helped facilitate Bob and Wes taking it to the level we're at now. And then we're just getting started. I mean, there's technology stuff coming. This year alone, we're gonna bend a lot of people's brains. So we've got some great stuff coming.
I know I did a podcast with Beth and Steve Stalker Floors. They're a huge gymnasium company. And every time I get a little sport floor, that's a big thing right now. I get a lot of private sport floors. People will call and say, what do they want? They want a 3-point line is what they want. But they'll turn their barn into a gymnasium. They'll turn their basement into a court. So I'll call Beth and Steve, and they always say, well, if you want something special, just call Game Time. So I did on the last project. I'm telling you, I sent them a business card of what we needed. The next morning, it came in FedEx. The whole thing, like the 3 sheets, 1 through 4. They said, put this down, paint it, put 2 down, paint it. And it was because this was a paint portion of the project. It was absolutely amazing. And I started looking into Wood Floor Business Magazine and reading more about what you guys do. And I saw, was it last year, you guys get MFMA approval for one of your finishes, waterborne finish, to go over vinyl. Was that overtime? Is that the overtime product?
It's the overtime 2K water. It can be placed directly over the vinyl, no issues. We have a waterborne sealer high build. Likewise, can go right over top of the vinyl. And we now have, actually, gosh, I'd have to count, but we have 2 500 VOC oil-based products, a 450 VOC oil-based products, 275 VOC.
Oh, they got the 275s finally.
And we've got MFMA approval on all but one of the 275 sealers still in process, but all the other products, the high build, the overtime, everything else is all MFMA approved. But it's been a pretty busy year. In my busiest year ever, I think we ever launched 4 products, and I think we're at like 14 this year now, counting the residential products that we've actually launched 14 new products.
It's a big deal because, like I said, we used to just tell people no. It sounded like the easiest thing. Oh, my sign guy said he could make anything out of vinyl, and we'd say you can't do that. I looked at a private college a few summers ago, and we went in to look. They had coated the gym, and I went over to the center circle, the 6-foot arc, and you could take the logo and peel it. It was in. I have a picture. It's yellow oil poly peeled up in the circle in the shape of the logo they went over. So we had to abrade the vinyl, put a bonding agent on it, and recoat just the center to keep it from chipping and peeling. And that still was, don't ever do this again. Then I got to speak with you. You just alluded to, you said oil and other things and this and that. Dangerous question, because all manufacturers will say, don't mix our stuff with anybody's. But if somebody were to get spec'd with a product that's not one of your finishes, would it work with your vinyl product, or do you stay away from that?
In the past, it has, but however, when the world got turned upside down a couple of years ago in the supply chain, and a lot of the raw material suppliers that the coatings companies used, they made changes that, and it's nobody in the coating business's fault. They didn't know that their raw material supplier changed something because they don't have to be notified.
Right.
Now previously there were a couple different brands of water-based products that worked just fine over our vinyl, and now they don't.
Right.
So, that's why when all the craziness started happening, Bob partnered with Jorge, who's our senior chemist, known Jorge for more than a dozen years. They developed the coatings they needed to work, and it's meticulously tested. We don't stop testing. You can't, because, again, to the point I made, you don't know when a raw material supplier changes something.
Yeah, Jorge Gutierrez?
Yeah, Gutierrez. That is correct.
The wizard behind the curtain, so to speak.
What's that?
The wizard behind the curtain?
He is the hero behind the curtain.
I hear this. He's kind of a cook back there.
I tip my hat to him and Wes's son, Grant. They are our R&D team, and they are brilliant, and they are diligent, and they don't rest. They're a great pair.
And you guys are working on this. I want to get into this maybe a little further down the line, but it's so new for what's happening in the industry. You guys you do certifications so they can be dealers.
Yes, you can't just be a dealer. You got to know the product, right? We have about a half court size panel here at our facility in North Little Rock. And we bring people in. Typically, class size is around 8 people, and it's a 3-day class where you actually, you're certified in those 3 days. I would hazard to say you'll probably install and remove 20 logos. We do everything from free throw lanes to the center court logos, everything in between.
How do you remove them?
They can be removed and actually stuck back down. If you come to the MFMA event, you'll watch Kyle, who's our print room manager and our senior tech for application, and he runs all of our trainings. Kyle will literally take a small logo, wad it up into a ball, and then using heat and patience, he'll pull that logo back apart and reinstall it on the floor.
That's impressive. I've seen the videos.
We've spent a lot of time, Bob and the team, and they have, and on the vinyl side have spent a large amount of time, finding that right vinyl.
Well, I would think that it's got to be super crucial for the floor to be sanded in the proper sequence and clean when you get at it.
Got to be flawlessly clean.
That's what I was
figuring. The big difference between paint mask and painting a logo and putting down a permanent vinyl logo like we have is that the floor must be meticulously clean. And you're correct to your point, is it must be sanded in sequence. If you're one of those guys that cuts a floor 3680, you will see those sander lines. If you get down and look at that logo, you'll see the sander lines in it. You will.
Well, the species effect, like you figure almost all floors are maple, but you get into Boston, you got an oak parquet. Or the grain of the wood in any way? Well, okay, let me go back to it. You don't just put it down, right?
Sanded and sealed.
I was just going to ask, what goes down before you can put the vinyl down?
Sealer. Our vinyl logos can go, if you're doing the printed vinyl logos, can go over water or oil. The floor's just got to be smooth and clean.
Can you put a sealer and a coat and then screen it off and tack it and go put the vinyl on that?
Correct.
Okay, because that's how we do paint. We usually ask them to put 2 down, screen it and clean it. We do the paint, and then they go ahead and coat over that. How much should go over the top? Is it a certain flow rate, or is it a certain mill?
You apply the coatings at the recommended spread rate. We want to see, ideally we want to see at least 3 mils dry film on top. 2 is more the standard. You typically, you apply 2 coats of some kind of coatings, especially in the water-based world when you're dealing with all the brilliant colors, right? A typical water-based, 2 coats of a typical water-based is going to be 2 mils. We do have some coatings that are heavier than that, can be used. Obviously, the more you put on top, the better. Because what you're actually doing, as you build up the layers of finish, you're making that floor less receptive to the seasonal movement because you're encapsulating the floor.
Well, and a lot when you're talking today, a big thing to talk about is LVT and vinyl, et cetera. And people are used to talking about, let's say, engineered flooring, and they'll go, "Oh, well, my floor is 3 millimeters on it." Well, millimeters would be what's on the thickness of, let's say, an unfinished engineered floor. Mil meaning 1/1000th. When you're talking about mil, when you put a finish down, it's basically, how many mils is the thickness of paper? How much mil is a plastic wrap? So 3 mils is basically you're getting 3 coats that leave a film should you test it or peel it off? And that's what you're trying to accomplish. And that film is what we call the wear layer or the durability of like, say, a sports floor or even a floor. Explain this. You've talked to me about this once before, is the difference between a gymnasium finish and a home finish. You can say it, we know.
Simply the coefficient of friction.
Exactly.
That's it. I mean, their gym finishes are not more or less durable than residential coatings. Right. They simply have a different coefficient of friction.
Right. So because people, and Chris is from the Boston area, we grew up with people saying, oh, I put all gloss down, then I screen it, and I put whatever you want because everybody knows gloss is tougher. It may be a different viscosity, but, tougher, I don't know.
And the funny thing about what you just said is it doesn't matter if the base coats are tougher, because the only finish you wear on is what you're walking on, exactly. not what's under it. So it's actually more important for the top coat to be the more durable coating.
You say that. I remember years ago, a large manufacturer did acrylic impregnated because there was a bigger manufacturer that was making millions at it. But what did they do when they got done? They went back to their tried and true methodology. They made a totally baked through wear product, and they got done by finishing it with the finish they put on all their floors, which is a thin coat of urethane. Mm-hmm. The floors within weeks looked like garbage because the top, now underneath, got not through any of the acrylic impregnated. So you're right. It's all when you're done, what are you getting to the top surface of this? And people will say, well, I don't want a gym finish. No, you don't. I want where people dance and bring in high heels, not where they take off their tap shoes or their shoes and their socks and their sneakers and their high tops. Gymnasiums are pretty much babied. So if you can coat over that, let's say your vinyl with a really great 2-part water-based finish that isn't stinking the whole building up, the whole gym up. That's another thing. Fumes, electricity, water, getting chemicals to the job to clean it while you're there. Seems like the whole process with the vinyl and a good water finish are far easier.
Mm-hmm. I agree. The most important thing about the water base, especially in the current gymnasium world is, it's all about branding. You want a certain shade of blue, a certain shade of red, everything. They want color fast. So, the nice thing about the water-based coatings is that, they're non-ambering for the most part. There are some out there that do amber, but for the most part, water-based, especially the 2Ks, are non-ambering. So you retain the color integrity. So that's the big thing. And again, to your point, the smell. We actually have a 2-part coating out there that's less than 50 grams per liter now.
So when do you want to explain to me what does the certification and training look like? Is this is the one that I think you've done one in Kalamazoo, Michigan?
Yeah, we do them. Typically, they've always been done here in North Little Rock because people are usually shocked when they see that we send in 2 pallets of vinyl. When we just did our first regional training school that you were alluding to in Kalamazoo at Paul Hardwood, we shipped 2 pallets of vinyl up there between paint mask and printed logos because we had 24 contractors in for that event because we had literally had a full a half court, a 50 by 50 area that we were able to work on. We set it up, and so we were able to get a lot of people under one roof. Regional training is something we're looking to do for the future. We just have to find a place that's big enough. We own that 50 by 50 floor, so we can ship it all over and put it wherever we need it to do these trainings. It's just got to be something with a wide enough span that we can actually build it in one area.
So right now, somebody can actually travel out to, I call it GTVI, your GameTime Vinyl Institute.
There you go.
Yeah, that's in Little Rock, Arkansas.
It's North Little Rock. Yeah, North Little Rock, Arkansas, just across the river from downtown. They can come up here. You just need the person you could contact me, myself, or we have our vinyl director is Stephen Schilling. You can reach out to him, and he's the one who schedules all the trainings. We can do a whole company if one company wants to send us 6 or 8 people. Or we just recently did one where that was 3 different companies and everybody sent in a couple people. So it just, we'll do whatever works. We're very flexible. And we need about a month to put it together because we fit the vinyl production for the school into our normal production schedule.
It seems like this should be nationwide if it isn't already. It's going to head there pretty quickly, wouldn't you think?
It's getting there. I mean, we've done projects all over the place. We've so far. I mean, we've hit everywhere in the continental U.S. We've done a project. I mean, we've done them in Alaska. We've done them in California. That we've got floors all over the place, all different climates, and they work.
Like I said, this is proprietary. If you're in this area, you even bring up a gym. It's one of three companies. One has Vermont, one has New Hampshire, one has Massachusetts. It seems like they would be the first to be interested in using your product. Is it typically going to go towards an expert professional gymnasium setup person, or are there...
We typically will not sell vinyl to somebody that has not been in our program.
Okay.
The other choice is there's an upcharge to cover travel expenses, and we'll put one or two of our techs on your job site. We've done that for people in circumstances where it's needed to happen, and Kyle or one of the other techs will come out, or maybe two if it's a big enough job. Going back to the Paul Quinn College, when we did that one, we literally had 5 people from our company there working with our contractor, who is an approved vinyl contractor. It's just a big enough project that one or two sets of hands is enough to do it.
How does it? All right, so let's say your customers, how do they provide their vision? It reminds me of when you used to get business cards. You say, I like a tree, and I'd like a logo, and I'd like it to look like... How do they provide their vision, and then where does it go from there? I know that you guys, you've got everything, different components in your business from... I noticed on your website, you break it down into your management team, your chemical team, your designers, your print, your installation. If I have an idea, and I have a customer that would like something snazzy on their floor, where does the ball start rolling?
It could be as simple as a picture. They've got a picture in a phone. This is what we want.
Yeah.
We can take that image, and our design team can draw it. Or if they know what they want, a vector file can be sent into us, and we can duplicate it. And we just need to know the scale you need it at. What do you need? And we make it. We'll do a rendering. We'll send it over. Contacts, again, Stephen is the contact for that type of thing. Stephen Schilling, mentioned his name, and Stephen at GameTimeWraps.com. You can email him. You can call the office here, which is fine, and they'll put you in touch with him. And that he'll get the ball rolling. We have a full design team, 3 full-time designers plus their supervisor. We've got in-house customer service. Typically, if we get a request, we can have a drawing and a quote back in your hands usually the same day, unless it's at the end of the day. We'll have it back in your hands the same day, but with a rendering and all of that for you to take to your customer for approval.
The only one-stop shop in the game, GameTime is the industry's leader in cutting-edge technology. Boasting the best service and quickest turnaround times in the industry, GameTime's customers know that the company is anything but status quo. From design to production, custom paint to the world's only patented permanent vinyl system, GameTime regularly introduces new technologies and innovative products and processes into the coatings world in systematic fashion. As one of the fastest-growing coatings manufacturers in the country, GameTime leads the way with a full line of high-quality oil and water-based seal and finish products that rival the best in the business for both the commercial and residential wood flooring professional. Visit GameTimeWraps.com or call 501-771-9727 today and see why great Americans can still buy great American products created by people who love this industry. With over 200 years of experience on this team, GameTime knows who drives their business. You.
What is, when you're working, let's say, well, back up a second. So this is a whole new vernacular here. You come up with vector file. I used to be in print, so for anybody that's in flooring, the first thing when you're going to encounter when you do anything transferring any type of artwork onto print media, whether it's a headstone in a graveyard or a van or a truck, is they're going to say, no problem, get me a vector file, right? What's a vector file?
It's a very high resolution file that would have every detail of the job in it. In the case of a basketball floor, it's going to show every game line. It's going to show the logos. It's going to show, the dimensions. And it's essentially all the detail you would see in a blueprint, on a computer file. It's very, very involved.
It's very
high.
similar to when someone says, listen, I can print this for you, but you're going to have to get me a high-end graphic or a JPEG or a PNG or whatever. The better quality that you send someone that does any type of print, the better the color processing to get it pre-produced.
Again, at the same point, if we have the people here who can do it, and we do it every day, you can simply snap a photo on your smartphone and say, this is what we want on our floor, and we want it to be, we want this logo to be 14 feet long and 22 feet high, or whatever that measurement might be. And they'll build the vector file for you.
I did there was a series of, it's kind of a sports center. They take over local gyms and clubs, and they go in and they make these big rec centers for the whole town. And I went through and I just took pictures of their walls and their lockers and the floor and the colors. And that's when they said, you got to get a hold of GameTime. When I sent it to them, not only did they reproduce it, they reproduced the Pantone colors. And then I happened to say, would you know any way I could get the paint? Because there's a lot that they want to paint. And GameTime actually gave me the codes to get just about the right exact paint mix to do the project. All that color coordination is really important to the customer.
Well, yeah, in the color world, and as the people who do gyms every day know, I mean, branding is everything. So everything's got a specific, PMS code, this PMS that. We are, I'm happy to say, being a one-stop shop now, we have our own paint and graphics and all that is, if we do a vinyl logo for you as a contractor, but you're buying your paint somewhere else, the odds of that paint ever matching, because as you know, Pantone is an ink system. You'll get 90% close. You'll get 92% close. But what we do here, we have the ability to put it probably in the 98, 99% range, where we'll actually match the color first in paint, and then our guys in the print room will rematch what we produce in paint, because it's real easy on their side to match the color. So that if we send you a printed logo and we send you the paint, and that game line paint is going to butt up into that logo, you're going to need a microscope to see.
Is that Chameleon game line?
The Chameleon game line paints. Yeah,
that's part of your. Describe that. What is that?
Chameleon. I mean, we picked that just simply because everybody knows a chameleon can be any color it wants to be.
Right.
So that's why we chose that as our trade name. And we are, I'm happy to say, I think we have one of the best color guys in the business, doing our paint matching. Right now the Chameleon paints are all oil based. At some point next month, first of the year, we're going to be releasing a line in the Chameleon line of water-based game line paints. And it's game-changing technology. I'm not ashamed to say it. I will say right now, conservatively, 65% of the colors, and I said conservatively, 65% of the colors are one coat.
That's a big deal, right? If anybody's done gym lines,
and the rest will be two.
I've tried every trick in the book. Use gray first.
Who tell me I'm crazy because they think we're actually closer to 80 or 90% one coat coverage. I just, I don't want to disappoint my customers. Give me another year hands on, and I may be out there screaming 92%. But this is new technology. There are no paint stores in America that have the technology we're about to introduce.
That's interesting. Jenny, if you ever put lines down,
I mean, that's our mantra is easy. We want to be easy. We want to make your jobs faster. And what we're going to show the world here very quickly is it's gonna open a lot of eyes.
Well, they look pretty, right? You look at a gym, and I did one for the YMCA, and it gets crazy. Here's a tip: don't use all blue tape. You get done, and I'm like, do I start here with white or green or blue? Is it pickleball? What is it? You go and you do, days worth of lining and tacking and cleaning, and now you're ready to paint, and you put the yellow. Like, this is going to look great. It looks like it's like Kool-Aid. You can see through it. It doesn't even look, then you're on your second, third, fourth, and you're like, I don't think we're making any money. Or somebody will say, put gray and then green.
That is unfortunate. But it's just been a fact. You get these brilliant colors that everybody wants now.
Yeah.
They're the high quality of the paint to get that level of brightness. It's very, very thin. It's opaque almost.
Yeah, and the schools and the refs need to see the lines. I mean, if your lines are off significantly, you can throw a whole season off. Everything's got to be, especially you get into NCAA and high school ball and college ball.
Oh yeah, if you get a referee who knows his business about, he can. I've heard stories of games being shut down because the referee said, "Oh, the lines are backwards."
Yes.
This is a basketball game, but on this floor, the volleyball lines are dominant. We can't play on this floor. What? I've never personally experienced it, but I've heard about it.
Well, that'd be really interesting if you're putting vinyl down and it's all done in one shot. Plus, it probably gets a little bit magnified when you put the finish over the top of it.
Absolutely.
That's crazy. So you got to insert yourself did this all come from the print industry, or did it all come from the floor industry, or did it all come from the coatings industry?
Well, and that's all Bob's story. The wonderful thing about that is Bob came out of the print and the vinyl industry where he spent most of his life. We met at Poloplaz where, back in the day when we were all there, I was, the sales director, and we were doing things. And Bob came to us initially as he was just kind of an everything at Poloplaz back in the day. He was our marketing guy. He would do all of, when we had crazy color samples, he was making those up. He just did everything. Eventually he became a sales rep, had a small territory that he worked. So, Bob's been doing this. He knows the importance of it because he's been there as a sales rep. He did that for a short time with us, and he just took what he knew and what he understood and said, "Okay, here's my vision for what we want to do."
So what's the next move? Did you go to the Americans Coatings show in Indianapolis? I think they had that one. There's MFMA does a particular, I think, conference that they do. Did you have to all of a sudden start going and letting yourself be known and presenting yourself to different conferences and different seminars and different organizations?
Absolutely. Yeah. When Bob started the company, he was, 2016, 2017, I think it was 2018 was the first time they went to the MFMA. Yep. That was that was their coming out party per se. People were just they were dumbstruck. It was easily the busiest booth I've ever seen, one of the busiest booths I've ever seen at the MFMA.
Well, for people that don't know, the Maple Flooring Manufacturers Association is not an easy nut to crack. You would think there'd be 100 gymnasium manufacturers. Over the years, I've seen between 2 and 5. I remember one year they added a 5th after 75 years, and they didn't last an hour. So they're very particular about their gym specs, et cetera.
To be an MFMA-approved mill, it requires an extreme amount of attention to detail. Yeah. And we use the same level of detail in what we do. We have to, because at the end of the day, like I say, it's all about branding. You can't be a shade off on the wrong color of blue. You gotta be in it to win it. So you have to, detail has to be your life.
You make a good point if you think about it. If you had to do floors in a house, or Chris, you would know as a contractor, what's maple flooring going to look like if you perfectly install it within a limited amount of time? Gap to beat the band. I don't care if it's engineered maple. Go find a gymnasium that doesn't have gaps. Or I tell people, pull out the bleachers and look up against the wall. There's usually a pile of maple flooring just jacked up against the wall because it expands, it never goes back. It's always gapped. I'm thinking, when you paint it, you don't want to get white line syndrome. You don't want that finish to pull, etc. It's really interesting that you say you can let's say you have a brand new maple floor, and it's just spotless and flat and tight and even, and you put the vinyl in, that maple floor is going to gap. It's a very odd species of wood. What happens? What's your oldest floor you've seen out there, and what happens to it when it moves?
We still have floors in play that were from 2016, 7-8 years.
Nice. Okay.
And they're out there as long as they're well maintained. And the people that own the building monitor the HVAC. As you know, that's critical. Moisture, temp, humidity, it affects everything. In the whole job. A lot of people don't realize that how much it affects the coatings. During the application process, you've got to have the right temp and the right humidity so that things, they flow, they level, they dry properly, they cure properly. Temperature and humidity affects all of that. Probably the most overlooked word of the day in the coatings business is dew point.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Most guys, you talk about dew point to them, they look at you like you're speaking French.
Now you're the weather guy?
Now I'm the weather guy, but you got to know these things because, the more scientific this job becomes, I mean, you have to be able to gather it in.
Well, if you own a moisture meter, whether it's an $89 pin jab it or a $600 non-invasive magnetic piece of equipment, it's funny you say that dew point. They all begin with dry bulb. The species of the wood is rated based on its dry bulb dryness and its how much it moves and expands in relation to its own species, etc. So when you're calculating out a floor with your little meter, it for you is recalculating the wood specific gravity, how much moisture it can hold, and then so when people say, "Oh, my floor is dry because I checked it," and they check the trim, the molding, the garage, the concrete floor, everything, and with one pin meter. Instead of knowing that there are variables there. Well, like you're saying, these different species of wood, and whether it's a gym floor, the heat, the humidity, the temperature range, if you can keep it in that 35% to 55% humidity, 6 to 9% comfort zone, you're not going to have any problems, right? It's when it comes out of that.
It's only true depending on where you live.
Yeah.
Because if you take that same piece of maple and you install it in Miami, Florida, the last thing you want is 35% humidity because you're never going to find that down there. You have to go down there and acclimate the wood to 75% relative humidity and then control the swing. It's that 15-point swing that people overlook is you want that 15% swing in relative humidity is what affects how much a wood is, how much a floor is going to expand and or contract. So, if you know the floor is going to live its life at around 68% relative humidity, you need to install it in that range so that if the floor dries out to 60% or takes on moisture and goes to 74%, that you're not going to have that extreme gapping. And it's just a patience thing.
Living in the Boston area.
The mill in Wisconsin, it leaves the mill at about give or take 6 or 6.5%.
Sure.
If you're sending it all the way down there, to Miami, since I picked on it, that wood needs to sit there and acclimate for a while before you install it.
I ran 3 operations in Florida, and the great thing was we never thought about it once because it was constantly at 13%. It was constantly humid. It was constantly everything. But 40 years in New England, it even like today, it's kind of sticky and damp. And 2 days ago, it was bone cold and dry. It's always up and down like that. And you're always watching that. And then people say, well, I left it in there a month. It doesn't matter. It's like, what has it gone through in the last 72 hours? So you're right. There's a lot of rocket science, as they like to say, doesn't exist. It's out there. We do run into this. You got to,
and you're always going to have that because once you get north of that, we'll call it the 45th parallel. If you're looking at the map, you get north of that line, whether you're in Michigan or New Hampshire or North Dakota, the weather does crazy stuff, and that is, honest to goodness, it's probably the hardest market in the world.
Yeah, the floor always tells the story, right? I have a bag full of probably $8,000 worth of equipment. The most important thing in there is my tape measure. If you're putting in 3-inch flooring in 10 rows, it better measure 30 inches, and if it's 20 rows, it better measure 60 because it'll immediately tell me they put this in heavy in the summer, they put this in too dry, they put it in too tight, they put it in perfectly fine and it moved. I can't tell you how many people pay for their floor, they wait a year and something happens and they say, well, my floor guy's responsible. You paid him, it was fine for a year and now there's a problem. Measure it. You can tell, there was a broken pipe, there was a flood, they left for a month, the humidity went up. The floor will tell the story. And as long as they worked within those confines, they're good to go. But as you know, when you're working with a 30, 40, 50,000 foot sport complex or gymnasium, we got big issues. And you're not, we leave a dime gap, let's say every 5 feet. I just did one, we left one every 3. And the engineers were a little skeptical of that. They broke a pipe about a week and a half later. And luckily the floor didn't blow out. It did in one area. But these are important things to consider when you're working on a gymnasium system. I'm amazed that the vinyl can just scoot right over that. That's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, explain to me what's your day look like, because you've been with them for a little bit now. What do you do with GameTime?
So one of the things I love about my job is the variation. Every day is different. Every floor is different. Everywhere you go. So my days can vary. There are days that I'm at home and I'm on the phone. But most of the time I'm on the road and I'm visiting distributors and I'm trying to get with contractors. I like to get with guys that obviously there's a lot of people that have not tried us out yet. So there's a lot of people that are getting on me now saying that they would like to try us. I like to be there if I can. I just love being on the floors with people working together with them, you know?
What's the future look like? Like, let's say you're not a gym guy and you're a flooring contractor and someone says, oh, we want to do our nursery floor. Can a contractor buy little whatever they want and put it in the floor rather than paint it, etc.?
Yeah, we got so many options these days. You know, that's one of the things that I'm really excited about. You think of some of the home courts and things that people want to do. You can put our vinyl package together with our coatings and like Mike's been saying about the logos, you know, you could have a picture of your kids on your floor. Absolutely. You could have your golf swing. You could be surfing. I mean, who knows, you know? I got some good skiing shots I'd like to have on my floor.
Well, see, that's great for somebody that's not going to like lose the gym bid. You know, they can offer some things to some people. I think. Hey, can the vinyl be put on a finished floor and not coated over? Would that not work? I'm just thinking because I'm thinking, well, you could put it down and change it. Like you put those big life-size Tom Brady's on your wall. Can you put that on a floor and then change it when you like, or is it best to just coat over it?
Yeah.
We recommend coating it in because vinyl itself doesn't have a protective layer.
Right.
You know, and it's not right or it's not wrong. When you see these floors on TV for these special events, you know, whether, you know, all these preseason basketball tournaments, they use temporary logos on those floors because they know they're only going to use them for a few days.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
You know, they're, you know, you make hard stop, you know, push off or do whatever on an uncoated logo and you're going to have a problem. Eventually you're going to push that edge back. It's going to happen. So that's why, you know, the intent here is our logos are designed to be as permanent as a painted game line.
That makes sense if you think about it. The night before a Super Bowl or the night before an NFL championship, they have to change all the fields. They got to put the logos, they got to put the end zones, change everything. Same thing with hockey. They change what's underneath the ice for the playoffs. With the gym, it seems pretty cool. You could put let's say you put an NCAA logo down and it's over and you run a sander across it, feather it out, and coat it.
Right.
We can actually, one of the benefits is that we can, if you put down a center court logo and you don't want it tomorrow, we can take that center court logo off, put a new one down, put a new one coating over and be done.
That's great. It's amazing. Yeah. And, you know, people got to check out your website. We're not just talking center logos. It's entire floor, the entire surface of the entire
everything.
gym.
Yeah. I mean, one of the big things we're really starting to do to help the mid-size and smaller school districts out, because they all, you know, everybody wants to look like the Jones, right? You're always competing to have your floor look good. We do a ton of sponsorship logos now, where, you know, a small community high school wants to have this really nice floor and it needs to be done, so they'll go to a local dentist or lawyer or whomever and sell them a 2 foot by 3 foot sponsorship logo for 4 years or 3 years or whatever their term is, right? And then if that business chooses not to renew the logo, you can go in there 4 years later, even through the recoats, and carefully remove that logo. We'll build the floor back up underneath where the logo used to be with some sealer once you've abraded it and prepped it, right? And build up that hollow area that used to be underneath it, and then drop a new logo right on top of it, the same size, coat it in, and it's never seen.
Wow. If you go over here to where I grew up, where there's 100 baseball fields, And about a
Yep.
decade ago, they became baseball fields that only people play soccer in. And it's funny because this junior league, kindergarten level, all the way up, the local businesses put their signage everywhere. For junior league games, soccer, baseball, now lacrosse, these big companies that come in and build multiple fields. I didn't even think about it because, or you watch international soccer, now they have these rolling advertisements on the sidelines. That's right. All the gymnasium, you could go right now and look at 200-300 gymnasiums. They got nothing there but maybe the school logo. But boy, if they got donations from the local businesses, they could easily put vinyl on an existing floor without a lot of hassle, screen, coat, braid the whole thing, mask it off like auto body work, and now you could have a local business donate to your local club or whatever it might be. That's a really cool place. That means 2 or 3 to 10 gymnasiums per every town in the country, everywhere. We're gonna get rich, guys. Did you hear that ding? Oh, there it is. Did you hear that ding? That was my resume. Yeah, open
ding, 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 ding.
So
what's going on?
It's crazy.
And it's incredible because the really neat thing about this is we've helped contractors on projects working for some of the poorest school districts you could ever imagine, but they were fortunate enough to have some sponsorship logos come in, and now they have like the best looking gym in 3 counties.
Oh, that's crazy.
It's incredible, and it's very, very fulfilling to do stuff like that and be able to help people. That's what makes this job so much fun. It's we love what we do.
Well, now we talk about things like a lot of the industry talks about LVT, and a lot of us wood guys are LVT. But Chris, living in New England, we have one thing a lot of places don't have. We all have basements, and for 100 years there's no wood down there. And you can fiddle with all sorts of engineered this and that. That's fine, but they can put something like So now the market is open. You go, well, if you make an LVT that looks like the flooring upstairs, they might want to put it in the basement. Well, same thing. If there's gymnasiums everywhere that were elitely unaffordable, I just did a logo where the logo cost more than the whole gym refinish did. When you can do it in vinyl like that, now you're putting it into just about any consumer's hands. And every local civic group or rec hall or VFW hall, maybe a VFW hall would like to put a Marine Corps logo and a Navy logo and one from each branch of the armed services. See what's happening, guys? When a good idea gets legs like this, it just runs wild.
It's crazy because, like you say, you can put it on anything. We've done, like I say, we've done concrete floors, wood floors. You have, to your point, you're at the local VFW, and I've never been in one that doesn't have a dance floor. If they wanted to do the branch logos, super easy to do. We can hit them all. Even Space Force.
Well, I'm going to do something when I leave today. Here's it for those listening back at home, back at the cattle ranch. I'm going to go out today when I'm driving around doing the Christmas shopping for my wife. I'm going to see how many cars have vanity plates, right? How many business vehicles now have wraps? Because a lot of companies, that's the
say 95%, 98% of them, unless if they've been done in the last few years.
Yeah, how many were there a few years ago?
They're all vinyl.
Yeah, it was just vinyl, but now there are wraps, and there are competitions on how crazy wraps can be. So I'm going to think, how many gymnasiums, how many sports floors, how many just floors do not have any type of this material? And now they can. Children's bedrooms, schools that have daycare centers. Everybody likes to make it something personal with that bit of a vanity issue to it. It's going to be interesting to see because I don't know anybody else doing what you guys are doing. It seems like you've pioneered something completely different.
Yeah. No, it's like I say, it's dynamite technology. It's been a long time coming. There's, again, like I say, we don't stop testing, because we don't want to be the source of somebody's headache.
No.
So,
and I know online it says unapologetically American. Where's that statement coming from? Because I love it.
Well, we're an American company that buys from American companies. We sell to right now primarily American-owned companies. And so, we're supporting the American family, not just at our facility with our employees, but our manufacturers, our customers. We are unapologetically American. and happy.
And if you go on the website, you can meet Cosmo, correct?
You can only see Cosmo on the website
Chris,
now
have you met
because
Cosmo yet? Are you in the club?
I did meet Cosmo. I was very fortunate to meet Cosmo.
Tell the good people who Cosmo is.
So Cosmo was, unfortunately, Steve, was our mascot because, unfortunately, Cosmo passed, possibly in dubious circumstances. But we'll leave that for another conversation. Cosmo was a peacock that Bob kind of adopted, that I think was living maybe wild. And Bob, being the guy he is, built Cosmo a pen, I want to say a kennel, but that's for dogs, but built him a whole place to live. And, with the colors that we have, a peacock just seemed to fit right in. And Cosmo just kept coming to our unit. To Bob's stores,
The bowl of food didn't hurt anything.
No, I looked at your website. I was cracking up because our neighborhood is full of, New Hampshire is very wild critters. And I'll say to people, there was a bobcat, there was a bear, there's coyotes. And then I go, the craziest thing we had was a peacock. And they go, where'd that come from? And I go, it was on my neighbor's roof on the chimney. And if you ever heard these things, they're like, yeah. They go crazy, right? And I'm like, where did we get a peacock? Found out there was an aviary up the street. The guy has all these exotic birds, and someone let the peacock out, and it was running rampant around the neighborhood. So I saw your website, and it mentioned, Cosmo the peacock. So that's cool, though. It sounds like you guys are playful. You're having fun with what you do, right?
We do. It's if you don't enjoy what you do, you don't have enough passion.
How do they, when you're doing what you do, how do you guys obtain, create, test, and implement like new techniques and materials? Like you must be stumbling across new little tricks and things every day, new chemistry, all sorts of things. How do you test everything?
To the nth. Yeah. The first thing that happens when you hear about a new idea or something is, like I say, it goes to the R&D guys and they have to be able to take this collection of incompatible products and find the right formula to make them compatible. So, there's, could be weeks, could be months of throwing away raw materials because if you mix things in the wrong ratio, they're not compatible. So when you mix them properly, all of a sudden now we have the coating we want, or now we have the paint base we want, or whatever it is we're working on. Okay, now that we have this figured out, can we make it satin? Can we make it matte? Is it only gloss? Okay. Then you start playing with, dry times, flow and leveling, adhesion. I mean, there's an endless spectrum of tests things go through.
How's this possible? Like, when did this all change? I assume that your team, Bob, Sarah, and everybody, and Jorge, at some point had to get into this and be told, you can't coat over vinyl. And you must have said, let's test it. You're right, it doesn't work. Did they start there? Like, we know this doesn't work. How do we make it work?
Yeah, the biggest thing we love to hear here is you can't do that.
Yeah.
Because Bob takes that as a very personal challenge.
And fighting words.
He's going to find a way to make it work. That's telling Bob no's like the worst thing in the world you could do. Because he's going to find a way to prove you wrong.
Yep.
And it may not happen in 6 hours or 6 weeks or 6 months, but at some point in time, we're going to figure it out and we're going to do it.
Well, I already know the answer to this, but I ordered my first logo work from you guys, and like I said, it came out great. But for people that are listening and are thinking, oh, I might, and they look online, by the way, it looks amazing. But one thing is it looks super difficult. Like, scale of 1 to 10, how difficult is it? Let's say 1, without a lot of time in the trenches, and 2, after you've got some training. Should they bring somebody in from your company early on, or how difficult is this?
A lot of people that are I would say if you're an experienced sports floor contractor that's done a lot of paint mask, applying our vinyl logos really isn't that difficult. It's just, we spend more time here with those type of people, showing them all the stuff that they find unfathomable. Right. Yes, you can, you could put it down. If it's off, you can take it up and move it. We'll install a 4-panel logo at part of the training school and say, oh, you got it facing the wrong direction. You have to pick it up and rotate it.
Right.
So then you've got to take 4 panels of vinyl.
It's upside down.
Yeah, it happens. It does. And it can happen out in the real world. So that's a big part of what we do with our more experienced contractors in training. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, doing our vinyl logos is maybe a 2 or 3.
Is it really thick? Like it doesn't tear easy, right?
It's the attention to detail, and that's the hardest thing that you have to teach people. Right. Because if you put down a paint mask and there's some dirt and debris in the floor, right? You got a bump here and a bump there. Nobody cares because the paint mask's coming back up.
Right.
But when you're putting that printed logo down, that floor has to be flawlessly, spotlessly clean.
Right.
And that's the number one thing. That's another one of the big things we teach people here is just, clean.
What keeps it in place? Like when you first, I assume it has a backing and you peel and you lay it up. Yeah. What keeps it in? Is there an adhesive there, like a Post-it note kind of adhesive?
Yeah, there's some adhesive to the vinyl, so that's what helps it stick to the floor. Yes.
Okay. And then you encapsulate it with the poly, and that kind of keeps it there.
Correct. And there's different amounts of tack available in vinyl.
Okay.
So, it's you got to be in that sweet spot when you're using this stuff. You just don't automatically go to the strongest tack out there and say, this is what we're going to use. Right. Because, then in the case of shrinkage, you can end up actually pulling and forcing finish and sealer to delaminate. You don't want to do that.
So that's why doesn't tear easy. Is it kind of thick or is it thin? Is it
the vinyl?
The vinyl, yeah.
The printed vinyl logos might be the equivalent of, say, 3 coats of paint.
Okay. Like a sheet of paper thickness.
Some body to it, but not such a ridiculous amount that, it's not like you're going to be dribbling a basketball down the floor and trip on the edge of the logo,
No, I gotcha.
Steve, I was impressed when I first saw it with really kind of how, I guess, versatile it is, right? So one of the things in the training that we do is this is training. We want to show you what failure looks like, right? So at some point, Kyle will probably burn a piece and go, look, that's how it looks like when it's done. Right, but you've got this window where you can shrink it, you can then stretch it, you can then shrink it back. So it's versatile, and the training is about getting those tips and tricks, so that when you're on the floor without us being there, you know how to handle whatever situations come up.
So right now, training would be wise to go to you, and then down the road, it'll be in other places.
Yeah, we do trainings here in Arkansas, and down the road we will be holding them in more places.
Like I said, we just did the one in at the beginning of October in Kalamazoo. It was the first time ever. It was, a huge learning experience for us as a company to know what our limits are.
Right.
Because we literally brought in 4 different vinyl guys, 4 of our vinyl guys, plus Kyle, so that we could have. Kyle kind of ran the whole thing and directed the stations and everybody was part of that. And then we had a separate section over where we were talking about the coatings, the paints, and how to make stains and all of that cool stuff because, it's all one big project, right? So you have to be able to do the whole thing.
Was the Paul Quinn college one, was that a second version? Because they had a really good looking floor before you put the really great looking floor in. Was the original work yours or was it something else?
That floor... that was the full on graphics on Paul Quinn was the first go round on that, and it's been done a couple times because they had a catastrophic leak. The floor was damaged, and there was a lot of material that had to be replaced. As far as the wood, so at that point we went down there. They had to sand, tear the floor out, sand things, refinish everything. Unfortunately, in this world, bad things happen. So,
well, and I don't know what something like that costs, but I know when I did the center logos for the ones we did, I think these were like 8 feet by 4. They were huge. It was not expensive. It was not.
It's not. It's a simple square foot price.
And you do stencil work too, right? Like I bought stencils from you just so we could paint letters and things rather than vinyl them. You do that too.
Yeah, we do all of the above, and we do when we do our printed vinyl mask. I'm sorry, I misspoke. When we do our vinyl mask for paint work, we apply the same attention to detail in that process as we do the printed vinyl, because there's, if you have to lay out a 50-foot baseline with letters, you don't want that to drift. No. And it can, because of the way these big digital printers work. But we install some software and some ideas and detail that we use on the printed side so that it corresponds over to the mask, and it makes our mask very, very easy to work with.
That's what people that are listening, if I'm right, a mask is when you basically put a tape down a stencil, and then you paint in and then you pull it.
Right, correct. You put a layer of stencil down, you paint whatever that color is. When it's done, you peel it up, and then, you depending on the material you're working with, you may abrade that paint, stick the next logo or the next layer of stencil on top of that, paint the next color. That way, that's how you build out, like, white trim around black letters or whatever that might be.
Well, even more important, it's not even the coloring. It's like, I can get the font I want. I can get the exact font for the exact school. Yes, the school, what's your font?
Whatever you want for font.
And they say, whatever, it's Garamond or it's whatever it happens to be. And you can get that exactly the way they want it. Which worked great with me with the YMCA. They have a certain font they use, and you guys supplied that. And I used to have to sketch it with a pencil for hours and then go get it approved and then paint it. You guys just supply it. It said right on there, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4. Put 1, paint it, do 2, pull it, do 3, 4, you're done. Amazing. It's like if you've ever seen Eddie Van Halen paint a guitar, same thing. Layer after layer, pull the tape and go. It was awesome.
Yeah, and it's a patience game. And the remarkable thing that I'll tell you about the printed vinyl is you can, once a contractor has, developed their system, taken what we train them with, and they put it into their system, and they have experience with it, they can lay out a full center court logo finished in the time it takes them to put down the first layer of stencil.
It's amazing.
Yeah. You imagine if it was a 5-color logo and you go, I just saved 4 days on this job.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to be hearing about you in the next few years, especially coming out of, like you mentioned, COVID and all that insanity. The shows are going to get bigger. They're going to get better. The technology is there. New things are happening. And there hasn't been a lot of real new exciting things in our industry. This happens to be one that's really turned my head because it opens it up to not only can the professional gymnasium expert group of folks do their thing uninhibited, it opens it up to other people that might get really good at this. Like, I only get called in to do the artwork. Some companies are like, can you just please come do the lines? Can you just come paint the logo? And the big companies want to move on. Boy, I bet there's going to be GameTime Wraps contractors. That's all they're going to do. Drive around the country and do, because this stuff is really cool. So you know what? People need to go on and look at your website. It's GameTimeWraps.com, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, GameTimeWraps.com. The one thing we haven't spent a lot of time on here today that I want to make sure you know all about and everybody knows is that we have a full-on line of residential coatings.
Finished.
2 oil-based coatings, a premium product and a price point product. We have a full line of water-based coatings, and we are all in for this industry. Last year, this past summer, we did our first NWFA show. We'll be there bigger and better, and when we all get to Charlotte here this coming April. With the full line of products. So,
let me ask you, this is a question. It's a loaded question. Oil finishes, why? Because this is important. Why did you choose to produce oil finishes?
Well, there's a time and a place and a market. I mean, oil-based coatings are they just do things, for the same reason water-based coatings came out. People want a more traditional look. You're in New England, right? So oil-based coatings work.
We begged for 20 years to get colored water-based sealers because New Englanders do not like pale-looking hardwood floors. They don't like red oak when it turns pink. They don't white oak when it looks pale.
And that's all over the place. So you make oil-based coatings because there's a time and a place for them. They're not obsolete. Water-based coatings aren't the be-all, end-all of it all. Everything is situational.
I think it's important. I've done consulting on the distributors end of it for years because manufacturers come to you and they say, will you please sell our product? And I've seen companies come out with brilliant product, just like when they changed Coke and nobody wanted it. And I'll always ask, why don't you have an oil? And they'll say, well, why do you ask? I'll say, because I can tell you the manufacturers that I sell that make the best water-based products also produce an amazing oil. And it keeps the customers going. Not everybody buys high test and pays $1 more at the gas pump. They buy the cheap stuff, right? People will use oil. It's what they're used to. And then they eventually learn how to use the water-based finishes, which have come a long, long, long way. And it's always the company that just goes strictly oil. And Chris will tell you, most of that stuff is in my warehouse freezing or not freezing, or it's in somebody's van freezing and not freezing. And it's very, very expensive material. The companies that have oils it shores up their finishing lines, and almost all of them will tell you, no, we're strictly water. I'm like, oh, good luck with that one. You're right. When you told me you guys were working with an oil finish, I'm like, good for you. You need to have that package. Are you an expert at coatings, or are you just an expert at water-based finishes? I think that's super cool.
Well, it is. It's important because, it's to your point, if you're in an environment where the temperature's all over the place, and water-based coatings freeze, and maybe you're not aware of it, and you take it in the job and you start shaking it too soon before it's completely thawed out, you can fracture the urethane crystals and ruin a beautiful sand job. Yeah. And it's a sand and stain job, and you can absolutely ruin a floor and force it to be resanded. The wonderful thing, one of the big attributes to oil is if it's 13 below zero, that oil is going to get pretty thick. But if you warm that oil back up, the viscosity returns and it's unaffected.
I can name you a dozen water-based finishes.
Freeze-thaw stable.
Sure. I won't name them, but I can. In 40 years, I've seen more than a dozen finishes come online that were sold by non-finished companies. Maybe they sell abrasives, maybe they sell power tools, and they all come up with the newest, greatest, bestest. Got the right chemist, and they come out with their water-based finish. And you think it's not going to survive, guys. You have to be in the game. You've got to know your finishes. They have to work too. Sometimes you find a beautiful finish, and months later, you start getting the calls why they're not working. Why did they turn white? Why are they chipping? Why are they failing? There's a lot of science and chemistry that goes into this. You guys have the background in it, and the fact that you're able to put these materials over your vinyl means you work your vinyl to a proprietary situation where it's bondable with things. It really is kind of revolutionary, and I think it's probably why Wood Floor Business has said, hey, you got to talk with these guys. Luckily, I know you guys. This is fascinating. I think it's going to get bigger and cooler and better. Take every photo you can and get it over to Wood Floor Business, because we got to print the ones from Quinn. Go online, look at those. They're amazing.
And several others. I mean, we've done some things.
Baylor was another one I thought was amazing.
Baylor's stunning. You name it, we've done it. Snakeskin, free throw lanes. We can do it all. It just depends on what you want,
That is cool. It's fascinating. I'm going to let you guys cut loose. I will give you your quick fire questions on all things wood floor. And when you're ready, I will fire them at you. You boys are good to go?
Let her rip.
You guys can see me because we're on Zoom. I will point, but we'll go, Mike. I'll just go. This is Mike. That's Chris. Here we go. Mike, if you weren't in flooring, what would you be doing?
I would probably be cooking.
Oh, Chris, what would you be doing?
Mike's a very good cook for sure. Yeah. Would I still be stuck in cooking? Maybe.
All right.
I'm not leaving flooring again.
Well, Chris, as a contractor, what would be, if you could work with one particular wood, which one would you prefer?
Oh, I think that's a good question, Steve. One of my favorites over the years, in fact, the favorite was a red birch that had been, you might know about this, Steve. I'm trying to remember the name of Deadhead Lumber had pulled a bunch of red birch trees that had been sitting in lakes in Maine for 200 years. Obviously stripped all the outsides, and the colors in that wood was just ridiculous.
Amazing.
Kind of like a Santos mahogany. There was everything, greens and reds and purples and wow.
I'll take it. Mike, give me one word to describe a perfect hardwood floor.
Non-existent.
Chris, is there a word to describe the perfect hardwood floor?
I mean, that's so personal, isn't it? I'm just going to say flat.
There you go. It takes me 3 words at least, like one of mine. Oh, that would work.
Right on, right on. There's no. I preach this all day, every day. There is no such thing as a perfect floor because one, they're not coated and finished in a vacuum.
Right. And I'm not conceited because that would be a fault, and I have none, so we're good. So,
there you go,
Mike. What's the most challenging project that you guys have completed with GameTime?
With GameTime, I just coated a very large facility in Virginia, 116,000 square feet. Wow. Yeah. Keep a wet edge there.
Chris, favorite tool in your contractor toolbox? What's your favorite floor tool?
I'm going to get yelled at, but it's probably the scraper.
Everybody says that. And you're right. Excellent.
Yeah, we came from scrapers, right? I mean, these days a Rotex is way better with the triangle attachment. It's faster. It does a great job. But if you can't sharpen a blade and you can't scrape a floor, then you're not a floor guy.
Mike, what's the most common mistake that most hardwood floor people make?
Cleanliness.
Yeah. Chris, most common mistake you see made by flooring contractors?
Not being humble, not wanting to learn, people thinking that they know everything. I've been doing this for 20 years. I do every floor the same. They're the phone calls that we kind of dread. You know, this is a brilliant industry and there's a lot of variables in it, and everybody should be open to learning.
Got it. Mike, what advice would you give somebody that first contacts you and is interested in doing like vinyl wrap in sports floor?
Just make sure that they have to have that ad nauseum conversation with their customer. Sure. You know, the maintenance, the care, the responsibility for maintaining that facility, whether it's cleaning the floor, temp and humidity, you know, all of the above. There's a time and a place for stuff like this, and there's also a time and a place you don't want it.
Chris, you have a favorite place that you've ever installed a hardwood floor?
Yeah, probably a place called Turner Hill Mansion in Ipswich. Do you know Turner Hill?
Is it on the coast by the castle?
It's the golf course.
Oh.
You know, that was a Catholic charities building, and it's just all the most insane quarter-sawn red oak everywhere. Wow. It's an incredible place, and I worked in the ballroom there a bunch.
Yeah, Hammond Castle's out there.
That was a good one. The other one that wasn't an install, but I got to finish the decks on the ships for the Boston Tea Party Museum. Oh. That was a really, really cool project.
That has to be.
To take your big machine to Gloucester Harbour, and my buddy carrying one end and me this one on a 2x12 gangplank to get onto this boat floating around and moving. That then, you know, is higher on the stern, higher on the bow, rolls over edge to edge, and I think was 4 inches thick. That was a hell of a project. And then when they had built those ships and they took them down to Boston Harbour, we then went down to Boston Harbour and worked on the 2 captains' cabins and stained them to make them look old.
That's cool.
That was obviously a phenomenal project. There was a guy with videos on it, and that was great.
Last question for both of you guys. Mike, in your home, you've been asked this. Carpet, vinyl, LVT? Any of those in the house?
Current house is LVP because I have 2 50-pound puppies.
That's not an excuse. What, you don't have finished tough enough for those dogs? All right.
I tell you what, dog nails are going to do what they do.
Yes, they are. That's a whole other podcast. Yeah, Chris, so vinyl in your house? Just up the street from me, right?
I got LVP in the basement, and I got hardwood everywhere else.
Now, see how he did that? That's the right answer. That's a salesman's answer. You're gonna go places, mister. Gentlemen, Mike Hoy, Chris Pester, thank you for being my guest on All Things Wood Floor. You guys are great. This is really revolutionary stuff. I'm fascinated to get a look at it. I thank you for spending your time with me.
We appreciate you having us.
Thank you. Boys. We will see you soon. Thank you for everything.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you to the sponsor of this episode, GameTime, the world's only sealed and finished permanent vinyl system. If you can imagine it, they can put it on a floor. Visit their website, GameTimeWraps.com, for more info. And if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review All Things Wood Floor. Thanks for listening.